Are we live? It's live now.
I'm just gonna play a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I'm asking myself, how live are we?
Hmm.
Hello, viewers. We are live right now. I hope y'all enjoyed that little intro. Guy out of Atlanta, Jamil Harley.
Yes, and Elijah Waheed.
RGB.
Shout out to those brothers, man.
That's pretty fresh. We use that in our promo intro. I like that. That's a good intro for Black History Month.
Strong.
Y'all, this is Black History Month. We really should be celebrating Black History Year,
Thank you.
You know, we'll take this month and we'll run with it. You know, and then we're gonna continue celebrating.
Right.
A lot of stuff to talk about in regards to Black history, our ancestry, history. We gonna talk about Black Panther a little bit. The movies doing flame all over the world. I think they released it actually in Africa first. So
really?
they had a big showing out there, and all the stars came out. So Africa got it first. You know.
Yeah.
Rightfully
Shout out
so.
to Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wakanda.
Always.
Shout out to Wakanda.
Wherever that is.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
newest country of Africa.
The newest country.
You know what's crazy is that people gonna find out more about our ancestry just watching that movie. Ain't that crazy?
It's right by,
crazy.
it's right by the cusp of Mozambique.
Okay.
That's why we're excited about it.
Okay, let me get my plane ticket.
But we have some very special guests here today. I'm Ray E.
This your boy P. Wills. What's happening?
And this is Ebony.
Just cut me
I
off.
did, didn't I? My bad.
I couldn't even finish my some introductions. They just cut me off.
My bad.
This your boy P. This idiot. Dang.
Your intro way too
Let's do
long.
it again. Do it again, Ray. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do it again.
This your boy Ray E.
This your boy P. Wills.
And this is
So you
Ebony.
did it again.
How did I do
It's all
it?
good. It's all good.
It's all right.
You
My
know,
man,
she's trying to
Eric,
ride the wave. It's all good.
my man Eric D. Saunders is in the building. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
I ain't mean to put your government out like that.
You
You know,
sure
it's
did.
just-
Well, I think
You
that's
know,
what my
I see-
Facebook said, so maybe I just need to go ahead and get it.
you know what's
nickname?
crazy is that
I'm going to release that in the spring.
there you go.
Gotcha.
There you
In
go.
the spring,
There you go.
look for my new nickname. nickname and people.
You know what's crazy is that when I see people out that don't know me really, but they know me from Facebook. My name used to be Ray E Music Nation. It's like Ray E Music Nation. What's up?
Like it's a real whole name.
They call you.
Ever. The longest name ever.
Better
It
than
is.
sincere,
It
though,
is.
isn't it?
It is better than sincere.
Better than sincere.
Wow.
That used to be his name.
He before the year came, he wanted us to start calling him Sincere. We was like, man,
Nah,
what's going on here? But my man Wise is in the building. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks
Glad,
for having me.
yeah, glad to have you
Thank
here.
you, man, for coming, man.
And the official star of the evening,
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Pat Payne.
Hey,
How you doing?
Thank you for coming.
I'm blessed to be here with you.
Absolutely.
We're
Exactly.
blessed to have you.
Thank you.
We
Before
have.
we begin,
Yeah.
sorry, I just cut Ray off.
I mean, she's just on the road tonight.
But
Yeah,
hey, come
baby.
on now. We got a special announcement that
Okay.
that Ray,
Ray.
posted earlier.
Rayford.
Yes. Let me
Rayford.
tell you about Rayford
Oh,
here.
here we go.
Uh-oh.
Here we
Rayford
go.
is about to be a married man.
Uh-oh.
He's
My
about
dog.
to be married.
Clink, clink, clink. Yeah, I know what that means.
That's good.
Yes.
Nice.
It's
Yes,
over.
sir.
Clink, clink.
Clink,
What's
clink,
up, man?
clink.
said
Clink,
it's
that
over.
means it's over. I'm in a good jail now. I'm in the best. I'm in the best jail you could be
So
in.
you in federal.
That's
I'm in federal for life. You know what I'm saying?
That's okay.
But it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Jail,
Yeah,
man.
we did.
It is. Not it is.
It's jail.
It is beautiful.
It is.
Not it is.
It's jail. Okay.
Although there are those times.
Jail, huh?
Okay.
Too
Oh,
funny.
wow.
It's a fun jail. No. But go ahead, Ebony.
Well, that's all.
Oh, that's all you
It's
wanted?
just a
Oh, so you
special
cut me
announcement.
off. Just
So we can, because we're
Okay.
just gonna keep on rolling and not
appreciate-
announce that you just
okay.
got engaged.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
At the Pacers game,
At
no
the Pacers
matter.
game, did it
Oh,
big.
man, I was-
too.
Stop acting like it
I'm
wasn't
talking about-
spectacular.
I was nervous.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
man, all
nervous.
those people, did they roll it across?
They did. They put it up there for
Aw.
everybody to see,
That's good.
and
That's
and
dope.
it
You
was
don't
pretty.
do it, you do it right.
Do it
Yeah,
big. That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I proposed on the plane.
Did you?
So like while
Oh.
we was in the air, so it was like, you can't tell me no, right?
Okay.
Or this whole plane going down.
Right. I mean no, that's not what's no. No.
Pull this emergency door.
Right.
Yeah,
Say
yeah. But this,
Move off. Wow, like that.
there's a woman flying in the air.
Eyes all big in the air.
I should have said yes.
Is it too late? Yes.
It is, right.
No parachute.
Yeah, it's flying now.
Carter G. Woodson
Yes.
is the official founder of Black History Month. Back when people were frightened and scared to battle the powers that be, he was one that pushed for the history, for it to be showcased, and rightfully so. We was given a month back then, you know. But we should really celebrate Black history all year long because things happen all year long. What are you guys' thoughts on Black History Month in 2018? Well, the 20th century. Let's talk about that. Pat Payne.
Well, first of all, I always tell people that we black all year long.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to squeeze. In fact, we call it Black Insanity Month because they're trying to squeeze everything black, into 1 month. So, what we try to do with teachers is keep it on their minds
Okay.
all year long through different activities, through different things that I send out to them all the time. It is always on their mind. Because unapologetically, I tell you that I'm still in the Indianapolis Public Schools, still working after 56 years. And
Sorry.
And your title, you're the director of.
of the Office of Racial Equity. Actually, now I'm a consultant.
Okay.
We're still doing the same thing that I always did, but we have racial equity training every month. We have 19 pilot schools trying to teach teachers about the genius that our children bring to them to the classroom.
And when you say pilot schools, this just trying this out to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Wow. Why did it take them so long? to initiate this?
Oh, I don't know, but we're just happy it's here now.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like we've been doing this in levels. I get, because first it was called the Office of Multicultural Education.
Okay.
So
So that's for everybody.
yeah, I'm at the point now where multicultural education, cultural competence, they are good words. All right? But we have to be dealing with racism and
Yes.
racial equity.
For sure.
Because
Right.
that is what is keeping their foot on our necks.
Deal with it in what way?
Well, right now, what we're trying to do is just open up some minds about our children, and it's so hard because they come in with these low expectations
Yes.
of our children, and they believe that poverty and low performance are synonymous. So they don't even, whatever skills they may have, they don't even use them with our children because they think they're wasting their time.
Right.
So in this training, and it is really deep because we don't talk about anything but racism. They
Okay.
got to leave the other isms out because it's racism. That's the bookends that's holding everything else firmly in place.
Right.
So they're there for 2 days from 9 to 5. And then we follow that up with book study. We
Okay.
give them all kinds of books. Michelle Alexander's book is the first thing they have to read. And they have a workbook that they get following the training that's very, very deep. So
Are they volunteering to be a part of
the
this?
principals do volunteer.
Okay.
They want their schools to be involved in this.
Awesome.
And I don't think they really knew what they were getting into. I think they thought it was just go to 2-day training and that's it. No.
You're gonna get some education. You're gonna get some education.
Yeah.
Put your boots on too.
yeah.
Put your
Is
boots
this
on. Go.
the training that I heard when I was in IPS? I heard that it's so intricate to where they have those very, I guess, vulnerable conversations.
Oh yeah.
And especially, because it's white and black teachers in IPS, and
but mainly
talking
white.
about white privilege and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
else, and having those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Wow.
They don't even call it privilege. They call it white advantage.
Oh, they
white-
changed the word.
The white advantage. Well, we don't say can't say white privilege, but
Oh.
we say white advantage because we also talk about those poor white people
Yeah.
who how do I put this? They would rather not give up their whiteness, even though they are in many of the same kinds of positions with their poverty, but they would rather stay white than come over and join with other people,
Now, why do you think that is?
Well, why is it that is called white advantage when you think that, because that's who does get the advantage.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think,
So
Yeah.
are you basically saying that they're choosing to be poor and white and not
Be empowered.
Be
with the
empowered,
black
right.
Be
culture.
empowered. That's
Wow.
right.
Because they
Exactly.
feel as though just because they're white that they already have an advantage.
interesting? That's
And they do.
interesting.
essentially,
Yeah, because they're the majority.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Now, what's the
essentially, you
difference?
have to think of the
I'm
strength
sorry.
of the foundation. When we think about who we are, we think about all that we have to be, that we've gone through, that people have fought for
Mm-hmm.
us to be able to sit on the many
Sure.
platforms that we had.
That's
when
true.
you look back, they don't have that same, particular pride.
They don't have to right. They don't have to worry
So
about that.
It's just like, we got that foundation.
Yeah.
And and even just kind of speak to why you think that is. Again, we're still talking about that 18, that Reconstruction period, where it's just again that it was just embedded into society. Then when you think about the introduction, the slow integration
Right.
of how we communicate, how things are getting communicated, that we begin to see African American. Negroes,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
and that's
Sure.
another thing. When you talk about Black History
We
Month,
have so
so if
many
100 years ago would have been
subtitles,
Negro
Right.
History Month, and so again, which would let us further know, then what do we identify ourselves as next?
Exactly.
Right.
Because obviously it's fluid enough, and then will it be able to identify ourselves, by skin color, by does it. What does
Who
it
are we?
accumulate to? Because that's what
Yeah.
it's been doing. To where it's breaking each time with a renaming, a repurposing. There's a breaking of a mold. So now, you know, where does it go from here? So
Outside of indigenous people in different areas, we are probably the only group of people who have no idea exactly where we came from outside of what everybody says, which is Africa. But we have people everywhere. We have Latin
That's right.
black people. We got Chinese black people, Russian black
Exactly.
people.
We
We're all
are
over the place.
everywhere.
And believe it,
But-
yeah, you know, and believe it or not, there were more black people brought to the islands than there were here first.
Right.
That's right. Brazil. I mean,
Yeah, and you got like if you look at Caucasian folks, they have like the Irish,
Yeah.
Russian,
Scottish,
Scottish,
all those.
different,
Dutch.
Yeah.
a lot of different ones. Italian, and they're able to say that
And the
person
Dutch
is
were, woo.
Italian or he's Irish
That's
or
wild.
we can't do that.
You know, one of the things we do in our training, we say, "What do you like about being white?" And I wish you would see the reaction that we get when we make sure that we ask, "What do you like about being white?" before we ask anybody else who's in it, black.
Okay.
And they don't know what to say because they've never had to think about it. You know, it's just business as usual to them. So they are stuttering. It's the most amazing thing. We've been doing this now since 2015 and get the same results every time. Then they get mad. Well, how come you did? Because when you ask the African Americans, what
No
do you
second,
like
right.
about being black? We just,
black,
I like
I'm
my
proud.
hair, I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
my nose, I like my nappy hair,
yeah.
I like my wide nose, I like my spirituality. We just go on and on.
Right.
Because we have to think about this every minute
See?
of the day. It is survival for us
Right.
that we are together. on
Self-esteem
this.
is huge, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Wise, what are your thoughts on Black History Month and the conversation?
Well, just to piggyback on what everybody said, self-esteem, your identity. I like Ms. Payne. I don't see it typically. I never saw it as Black History Month.
Okay.
I've always seen it as an educator as like Black history is every day. As Black people, we make history every day.
Right.
So in terms of that, Black history to me is not just a month, but it's it's who you are. It's an idea. I try to make sure.
Mindset.
Definitely a mindset. I try to make sure that, particularly with students of color, there's become a disconnect with the older generation and the younger generation where we have lack of intergenerational relationships building. So in terms, what I try to do is try to connect historically the past to what children are doing today. So I don't try to give a lot of dates, names for them to remember. I try to connect historical analysis, cultural events that have taken place in our society that have taken shape today.
Give us an example. Of
Well, a great example is Eric was talking about Reconstruction
Yeah.
and how Trump becoming president is so reminiscent of, Reconstruction when you have Rutherford B. Hayes, the infamous deal that he made to take the troops out of the South in order to be, in order to become president. So, I mean, but when you think about capitalism is involved in that, racism is involved in that, sexism, all of that is involved in that one trait. But you take that historical incident and then you ask them, what do you see today with women's rights, on the cusp now? It's always been on the cusp, but it's even more on the cusp now. Education in terms of that. So I try to connect historical events that have shaped American culture.
wow.
In terms, and I always teach history, and I'm unapologetic. I
That's
teach
right.
history through an African lens. I start with Africa
Yes,
first.
absolutely.
The
Yes.
Greeks were babies when we
Thank you.
we handed out college
Amen.
diplomas and stuff.
For
So
sure.
Yes.
in terms of that, I try to make sure that I speak from a black man's lens because I am a
Okay.
black man. And I try to speak from an urban lens because I did come from an urban community here in the city of Indianapolis. So I try to make sure that I connect with the youth in terms of history is important because it teaches us patterns. It teaches us customs, traditions, and we can see and we can go back to those traditions and customs and see how we failed, and how we pulled through.
Absolutely.
What type of information, literature did we read, books did we read? I think it's even more important that we live in a very tech-savvy culture,
Gosh,
social
yes.
network culture,
Oh, yeah.
where, I was arguing with one teacher where you have some teachers that are arguing that, social media is eradicating the fabric of education. But
Yeah, yeah.
me as an educator, that's my job to find ways to connect with students. So social media is a
That's
tool
true.
to me.
Absolutely.
So with all of the, and I even tell my students it's even more important now that since you guys are on the internet, look up these people that I mentioned.
That's right.
And I always, whenever I do a lecture, I always give a caveat. Nothing I'm telling you, you take as gospel.
That's
Right.
right.
Go,
Research.
Research.
You go, you research, and then I want you to come
Exactly.
back with a narrative that challenges me.
Yes.
Because what I want to instill in
Yes.
them is that, you know, we got to be critical and skeptical
Yeah.
of the information that's often
That's
written
right.
about us, not by us.
Exactly.
That's even more important. You know, information that is falsified out there that is not by us. You know, we
Right.
talk about we talk about Negro History Week. Remember, Carter G. Woodson, you know, he came from a cadre, a group of people where, you know, they had to do their own research.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so we're
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about, you know, Arthur Schomburg, John Henry Clark. These were guys who spent their life just reaching this information just to turn it into Negro.
There weren't a lot of
History Week.
tools that they could use to,
You know,
to get
uh,
smart, to be smart, or to appear smart.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ray. You know, Joel Augustus Rogers, Joel A. Rogers, one of the great African historians that has long gone and passed now. But he was a foreman, and his boss told him, you know, you a damn fool for going out there and wasting all your money to go look up your history. You know, that's paraphrasing, but you know, but at that time, Joel was like, who else is gonna do it? And I, you know, take that back today. Who else is gonna tell our history?
Amen.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think Black History Month, you know, not just month, but you know, just Black History it's our job, it's our due diligence
Absolutely.
to make sure that we're always adding new narratives, not the same narrative,
Right.
new narratives. You
Right.
know, I'm reading a book on Ella Baker now, Ella Baker and the Black Freedom Black Freedom Movement, and to me, I'm just inspired and in awe at what this tiny frail woman was able to do within the civil rights movement, along with King. And what most people don't often understood is that when King is put on the pantheon, Fannie Lou Hamer
Yeah.
and Ella Baker, all of them need to be put on the pantheon with him.
Right.
The things
Right.
that
Come on with
Fannie
that.
Lou Hamer did, you know, I mean, you know, people forget
They
she
don't
shut.
even know.
They don't even know. You know, she shut down President Johnson's, you know, this speech that he was going to do at the time. It was a very important speech. She shut it down. This is a black woman talking about voting rights. This is important. You know, this is very important. Ella Baker,
Absolutely.
you know, she was very instrumental in what we think movements like SNCC. You know, and then when I talk about the youth, she was very instrumental in shaping the youth who got started, James Foreman and all of them. So in that term, so Black history to me is, you know, I seek with it, I
Right.
breathe it, it's a passion of mine, and I think it's ever more important that we continue to move forward and progress it and continue to create new narratives for it. You know?
Absolutely.
You know, when you talk about us doing our own history, there's an African proverb that says, until the lions
Yes.
start writing their own history, the
Hunter
hunter will
always
always win.
Wow.
So
That's
we
incredible.
must
Also,
do that.
and there's another funny because Winston Churchill has a quote that says that history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. And what most people don't know about Winston Churchill, he was a historian himself before he became prime minister. You know, and he actually has a small book on Africa. What most people don't know about, and this is a source that you can go back to
Wow.
to study how South Africa literally became South Africa. He actually tells it's called the River Wars. I don't know if it's in publication now, but again,
River Wars.
there's plenty of texts and works out there that we can get our hands on now.
What would you recommend? What
Yeah.
in
Go-
your
go
experience?
down
What
to
is the best way for people to grab some of this knowledge and information?
I would say, go down to the Black Literature and Culture
The
Center.
library.
Yes.
Right.
The library.
I was
Yeah.
down there today.
When I say the I'll repeat it, Black Literature and Culture
Okay,
Center.
this is own
Okay,
section.
because you
Central
guys,
Library.
Yes.
Here
at
it
the
is.
Central Library,
Okay,
and we opened that up
Yeah.
in October last year, and
nice.
I was just blessed to be able to come on board this time. But you have people who've been putting in work for years.
That's right. Since
Years, and
1978, I'm on the board
Right.
of the library.
Right.
But since
Right there in the- got a picture and everything.
1978, the African American History Committee has just been quietly working. They're the ones that do is Meet the Artist.
Meet the
Yes.
Artist.
That starts
Shout out to
this
Cordia.
weekend. Yeah. Who'll be here?
Cordelia Watkins.
Oh yeah, Vivica Fox will
Vivica
be
Fox
here.
will be here. Look, this is time to promote that this real
This weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. When is that?
Saturday, February 10th,
Yeah.
2018, 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
There's an open reception featuring Nat Town's finest.
That is
I mean
something
finest.
to promote.
Vivica Fox.
If you haven't been down there, you really
need to go.
need.
That's at the library
It's a
downtown.
beautiful
I went,
experience.
so last year,
We
this
got to
time,
protect
that whole
it,
place
too.
was bare. Well, it had a few books there and
Yeah.
everything like that. And we shot I shot some videos down there with some poets,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, I wanted to try to capture.
You did?
Yeah. Every year. She was one of the poets, but I don't know if they really knew
You
it
a poet?
Yes,
See,
ma'am.
all right.
But it was just so bare in the room, and people who came on board to help were like Ebony Crow, Mariah Ivy,
Sure.
January York, Kwame Dinizulu,
Oh,
James
you,
Ivy.
you brought the
So
elites, elites in.
when I say I put out a call and folks responded to it, I was like, wow. And it was
It was a
essentially
beautiful project.
poets
Really good.
reading the works of poets who
Yeah.
inspired them.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of like with me, the way poetry's coming my way is just through Cafe Kumba.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another place.
Yeah.
Because again, when you're gonna be around poets, you're around, true. Homosexual.
It's real
But you
deal.
got poets who say, I research.
Right.
You
Right.
think it's just something I'm saying to get your fingers
Right.
in? No, when I read this,
I know what they're talking about.
I have to, mix my opinion with fact
Right.
and be able to back it up as well. So but definitely get down to the Black Literature and Culture Center. A lot of work went into it, and like I said, I remember just walking back and just running into this book, huge book about Marcus Garvey, UNIA.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, and I was looking at this, I was like, look, maybe I shouldn't even be saying this on the radio, but I said, I know there's some stuff in here that if we all just got our hands on it,
Right.
and learn from it, reduplicate some things.
Yes.
Next thing you know, we got about 3-4 ships.
Right.
That work.
Okay.
Right.
That work.
Right. Right.
Marcus Garvey, at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he and W.E.B. were, they were beefing, right?
Man, it's so crazy. You thought
Yeah.
Tupac and Biggie was something. When you read about it, was so you had in the mix. You had W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington was in there.
Wow.
Marcus Garvey, and,
Elaine Locke.
and what was my guys who he Trotter, William H. Trotter, and so he was up. So his name rang a bell as I was doing research on Birth of a Nation, the first Birth of a Nation,
Okay.
1915. He actually led a protest towards Birth of a Nation, and so he passed tragically, but it was just like all these scholars were
Right.
in such disagreement, but it's almost kind of I wish it always was like, yo, let the world see us play checkers. Amongst ourselves, we'll play chess and we'll do what's best for the order.
Right.
And I
Right.
kind of wish that was the way it was then with in the civil rights, and really now. But it's just
In some
like,
ways, we're still
like, stop
dealing
putting your
with
moves out. Stop letting
dealing with
everybody know
that
what your
because there's a
moves
lot
are.
of people out there that's so-called representing,
Yes.
Right.
and they all beefing. What
Yeah,
what
that's
is it?
right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's went
Exactly.
anywhere. What do y'all? And I'll get to that. I'll get to that. But what I wanted to ask y'all is, there's a lot of people who rebuttal Black History Month. Why they gotta have a month?
Yeah.
Why don't he give us a month? You know what?
Why we gotta talk about black all the time?
Right.
And
If
I'm
you knew the
asking
history
why
of
we
it,
only got a month.
They act like we happy about that one month. You know,
Please.
we'd rather have two. You know,
Dr.
so
Carter G. Woodson also started an organization called the Association for the Study of, I don't think, it's not Afro-American life and
Negro-
history.
Negro Civilization.
Negro Civilization.
Life and
Yeah.
history.
And he wrote the book too.
would-
Miss
and that,
Miss Education
it has
Bureau.
been going all of this time. And in fact, the conference will be in Indianapolis, I think, next year.
okay,
Yeah, so
really?
people are planning that right now.
okay,
Nice.
yeah. And I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Why are people in such an uproar that we have a month that we wish we'd had a year? But
Well,
Or that we even
It goes
celebrate.
They don't want us to have.
Well, I said, to me, it's white supremacy.
Yeah.
That's
The
all
whole,
it is.
the whole idea of manifest destiny, the whole idea, right there, this idea that they have divine white right, privilege, when colonialism, the thing is this, the idea of black and white are just are just words, they're just words,
That's
it's
right.
constructs. We go back to Carol Linnaeus in 1735 when he started to, break down people, like in terms of by race. Then after that, you get, this kind of social Darwinism, this idea that,
Right.
black people are, they're the weakest, so they won't survive. So out of all of that, and then on top of that, you get this idea that we have to create a structure from which whatever we say has to be rectified, justified.
Right.
So black people have to be put, you know what I'm saying, as second-class citizens because it doesn't justify our particular narrative of history. So the idea is also, it's also, people say, I heard one person to tell me today that they have a bit of white guilt, but I look at it in terms of the argument about us having a history. It's truthful to them, and that's the best way I can put it.
Sure.
You know, it's very truthful to them for the facts and the narratives that come out that, hey, they were successful. Matter of fact, they're a lot older than us. You know, Henry Louis Gates just came out with on PBS Great African Civilizations, and what they thought was the oldest caves in the world in Europe and the caves of Laveau. You know, they found out the Africans were, it's 136,000.
Right.
You know,
Right. Absolutely.
So you know,
Thousands of years.
so and then the caves in Europe only go back 36,000, 40,000 years. So we're talking about,
Right.
I mean, we're talking about a huge time span.
Absolutely.
We're talking about reading,
Of
writing,
survival.
survival.
Right.
What she just said,
Right.
survival. So it's, to me, it's all of that.
And it's all recorded. When I've been to the motherland, I've been to Egypt. I don't even
Wow.
want to call it Egypt because that ain't the real
Kemet.
name.
Kemet.
Kemet. Twice now. Because one time, when I think about it, it sends chills
Wow.
through me. Been there thousands and thousands of years.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, when you go there and you see Horror Market, the Sphinx, when you see those 3 pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, it is, you can't just go one time. And when you let our children know that it was black hands that built all of those things, and how it was done, I tell them, you shouldn't be flunking one subject.
Come on with that.
Because we are the ones that constructed all this
Masters.
things. And you can see it. When you can see it on the temples, because we kept records of what we were doing. They call it hieroglyphics, meta nature,
Yes.
divine
Writings of God.
speech. That's what it is, and it's everywhere. And you can see where they have tried to scratch it out, drill it out, and everything, as they did to the nose of Horror Market.
Yeah.
Our children need to know this truth, not starting with, because I tell them, our history didn't start on a plantation in
Come on
America.
with that.
Absolutely not. It started thousands and thousands of years ago in Africa. And when I hear somebody with black skin tell, I didn't come from Africa, I beg to differ with you. Oh, yes, you did. It's all in your genes.
Absolutely.
All
It's in your
there's
DNA.
nothing-
Yeah.
And going back to that point, Ray, that's the reason why. That's what they don't want out. That's why they argue so much against. That's why they argue
Right.
so much against it,
Right.
because it's a sort of it's a truth awakening.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you
Right.
have textbooks that are, you know, textbooks in Texas that are now calling slave immigrants. You know, because, you know, they're trying to whitewash the narrative. That's why you have
Right.
certain places that are no longer calling Columbus an adventurer or the first, but he encountered now. Now it used to be he was the
Right.
first explorer. Now he
Right.
just encountered some people
Finding
that
out.
he raped and pillaged and slaughtered. So in terms of that, they're finding themselves trying to grapple with all of the falsities and falsehoods that they've said about black and indigenous people. I tell people,
That's right.
you know, I tell my students, you know, this particular narrative of history that I give you, if you went to the Iroquois or the Cherokee or somewhere like the Pueblos out in Colorado, their history is different. The white man is something vicious.
That's right.
You know, but that's not told in textbooks. But what you respect about what they do is that they tell their own narrative. They pass down that history.
Yes.
And going back to what Ms. Payne was talking about, it was said that we couldn't read, we didn't write. So it was based by their definition of what writing was. You know, they got there, they seen people with no clothes on.
Yeah.
They said, oh,
That's right.
these are uncivilized. These are
Uncivilized
uncivilized. You don't wear.
savages.
They
You don't wear.
live in huts.
You know, and there's a good book called The Role of the Missionary. This is important. There's a good book called The
yeah.
Role of the Missionary, where
That's got
you
all these
know,
books.
not and David Livingstone, Henry Morton Stanley, when they went into Africa and started to map out Africa, not for the pure genius and curiosity of what Africa lent itself to be, but for the pillage, to go back
That's
to
it.
Europe
That's
and tell these European colonizers and exploiters, hey, this is where the rivers are, this is where these people live. We can go in, and it's the same thing in Christopher.
Some globes made Africa look smaller than it really is.
yeah.
Africa is
Intentionally.
huge.
What's the name of the map?
It's the
Peters.
largest-
Yeah, the
Peters map.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the only
You can
one.
put 5 United
Yeah.
States. I believe put 4 or 5
Yeah,
United
it's
States in
huge.
Africa. I mean, it's huge. I think it's what 4,000 miles in terms of like the width is like 4,000 and like the length as far as like from north to south is like 5,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking, and then on top of that, we're talking about a plethora of languages and cultures that
Yes.
we have yet
Yes.
to
Tap into.
understand. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the truth.
most Africans know 4 or 5
Oh, yeah.
languages.
We have students at Christmas Attucks.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how many languages can you speak? And she started rattling off. She can speak 5 languages.
That's incredible to me.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
To come from a place which
Yes.
the world says is poverty stricken,
These are
and you come
children.
out of there knowing 5 or 6
That's
languages.
right.
We
Now-
only learning 1, possibly 2.
and out of some of that is that it's out of necessity because of colonialism and after post-colonialism. A lot of those children who are children of parents who lived through colonial, they were forced to learn those languages,
Yeah.
and they were
Ah,
forced
yes.
Right.
to look at the political circumstances and be politically astute as to the conditions
prepared.
that they and prepare. So when we see kids who are
Yes.
knowing it's by necessity and
Yes.
survival,
Yes.
you know, that they're put
Right.
in those situations to know. It's no different from when you look at kids in China, that education is a necessity. I mean, it's
Right.
you know, you actually,
Not play.
you know, in order to be a teacher, you have to it's not here in the U.S. where I want to be a teacher. Well, you know what? We'll put you through 3 years of training.
Right.
Yeah.
We give you no urban training, but we're just gonna throw you in the class. In China, you have to pass a plethora of things in order to show
Absolutely.
your you know what I'm saying, your resolve to be a teacher. So that
Absolutely.
just lets you know teaching itself is a skill set.
Yes.
It is.
Right.
So when you look at people when you look at students who are astute to different languages, it's by necessity.
Right.
You
That
know?
goes to show you why, some cultures get a degree where they are, and then they come over here and conquer
Yeah.
businesses,
Yes, they
money,
do.
everything. Because I know a few African guys that came over and, know 5, 6 different languages, started a business right away. Boom. They got start off with great credit, everything. We live here,
I know it.
and we don't get it.
Here's something else when you're talking about languages. We have Hispanic students that come over here and don't speak a word of English. First of all, they get the kind of help that they need.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, you
Right.
know,
Sure.
our children don't,
Right.
but they do. And they can pass the I-step and not even know the English language. Now,
Really?
would you we have Hispanic
That's true.
What in the
students
world?
passing those tests. But here sit our children, you know.
What they do? They give it to them in Spanish or English?
No, you can't give them in Spanish. It's only an English version.
They got ESL. They
This is
got
voodoo.
all kinds of help there for them, you know, to help them learn the kind of languages that they need to pass those tests. Now, how is it? Well, I know how it is because I know what's going on in those classrooms. Our children are not being taught. That's it.
Is this something to say that all that we've been through, we're resilient people? You think about that. Not only do the survival mode part of it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
just in general to know that we don't have a vengeance in our body to want to go after somebody. We just know how to achieve and be great.
Spiritual.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's
and that.
spiritual.
So what are your thoughts on that and why? Because honestly, we're just 12 to 13% of this country, but technically, based on how we're treated in some ways,
should've
you would think we
been gone.
was going to take the country over.
Yeah.
I mean that's how in some areas we're being treated. So
It's not
my
even
question,
within us.
right? My
You know?
question is are we sleeping still?
I would say everybody's not ready for a revolution, and then 2, I don't want everybody in my revolution.
There
And,
you go.
You know, so in terms of that, I just I think you have a lot of people in here, particularly black people, who believe in the American ideology, believe in they should get their share of the American pie, which there's never been a pie for anybody in the first place unless you're the 1% and wealthy, a rich white man. So in terms of that, I think that's and then I think we don't have great examples of people showing, in radical ways. We do have great examples, but I think when it time for the what's that phrase, when the rubber meets the road, people see the challenge. I think, you know, talk is all good, ideology is all good.
Yeah.
Talk and ideology will get you only so far.
Right.
But when you
Yeah.
put the pitchfork in somebody's hand and tell them, hey, let's start digging, let's start
Action.
doing some food.
That's what
Let's
we're
start-
missing.
That's it.
Action.
And the only thing, so I try to spend a lot of my time, I don't debate anymore about our history. I just say, hey, you want to know, read this book. And
There
I'm
you
gone.
go.
Next thing you see me, I'm in the classroom. I'm leading that example. You know,
Yeah.
to teach. That's what I'm doing. That's a
right.
form of action. So what we see is a lack of action. And that you just don't have a lot of people that are committed and disciplined
That's
to really
right.
you do the work, and most importantly, committed and willing to do the work with youth.
Does that come from? We talk about this all the time, and any of y'all can answer this, but we talk about this all the time. How we have more faith than action,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is bred from the spiritual aspect of
Yes.
going to church over the years and just believing God. You know, Jesus gonna come. He's gonna, but faith without works is dead.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this goes to speak on what you were saying, which is, you know, instead of saying, yeah, we're gonna do this and do this and do this, we have to show some kind of action. What are y'all thoughts on that?
I think more than action, I think we need to learn how to display more vigilance
Okay.
and be very cautious of pride.
Okay.
And I'm not saying not having pride at all, but pride can also blind you from the plan. And so, which there is no collective plan.
Right.
And I think, you know, we talk about, there's a lot of things happening right here in Indianapolis, and have happened, but they don't need to be broadcasted, you know, but it just needs to start
move
a
in
vibe,
silence. Yeah.
you know, create a new harmony.
Right.
And that's essential, that word harmony, a new rhythm of doing things. We talk about currency. Or money. Is it money or is it currency? When I say to
Right.
myself, it's not the dollar that gives it value, but it's the currency that makes this dollar feel like it's something of substance.
Absolutely.
At one point in time, it was gold and jewels and gems.
Right.
This, that,
Right.
and another. If we decide right now, a worm is worth $5, you know what I'm saying? Then, but what can you do with the worm?
Right.
Can't you make
You can
silk
grow
with
some
it?
crops.
Right.
Yeah, you could.
So
Right.
what if I told you that the seed or something like that is like, but what if we added a little bit more into this currency and this flirt and
Right.
really start to incorporate ingenuity into our survival? I think to myself all the time, I was like, man, case in point, my son, he loves to take the trash out.
Okay.
4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He got him a little vest and everything. Trash man comes, daddy, look at the trash man, look at the trash. I can't wait to take my son to the city dump. Just to see how amazed he was.
Right.
And it's like, and I said to mother, now he got a jumper. I said, but by him knowing a little bit about the trash, he's understanding the micro
Absolutely.
of the plan. And I told him, I said, what if I was to start a recycling company right up under my
Absolutely.
son? It's like this
There you
right here,
go.
this water bottle can be of value
That's
to
it.
us.
Absolutely.
It's like, but we have to repurpose what we call value and the things, you know, like I said. So again, it's the innovation, and then just again being more vigilant. So it's just like after a while, we start messing with these bottles. That'll affect that market over time.
Right. Right.
After a while, we start taking these caps or something. And like I said, you have to you can't defeat racism by just saying, no, this right ain't right. This
Right.
da da da
Right.
da da da, and you go back out to the field.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to disrupt it.
Right. Right.
Make it turn on itself
Right.
over time. But it's just like, again, how it works, the money, who's ever controlling wealth down there. So how do we really manipulate
Right.
wealth again on a micro level?
Right, right. In some ways, being in America, you have to almost fight the battle the American way, but in a strategic, smart way.
Yes,
So,
that's
okay,
right.
you want me to get education, I'm gonna get educated.
Yes.
You want me to go get this license, I'm gonna get this license. Then I'm
Yeah.
gonna go out there and kill with it. You know,
Because we're gonna really keep pretending like when our youth, as we are talking about education, we're gonna really keep pretending that as soon as they walk in, first thing they see is something that's not going to nourish their mind.
Sure.
But yet we want them to go to class and have
Yeah.
a concept of what input equals an output.
Right.
right,
It said already they don't have a conscious, a holistic perception on input
Right.
equals output. But it's just something we taught in class. But for the longest time, I mean, I'm in my 30s, but I still hear kids say, "How's this going to help me with life?"
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Right.
there's so many
Absolutely.
now that I'm older. I see so many XY formulas and
Sure,
and
right.
solving this, that,
Right.
and the other, and understanding You understand fractions a whole lot better when you got a
Yes.
boy.
Absolutely.
You start to
Absolutely.
understand engines a whole lot better when you're trying to get a car.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's even something, because check this out, and I don't know if it's being duplicated anywhere else, but you hear a lot about Black Wall Street, this, that, and other.
Sure.
Why something as simple as Black Wall Street being implemented into it's like you said, another lens.
Mhm.
You know, when you come in, here's your books, this, that, and other. And by the way, you own a barber shop. Or by the way, you own a tire shop.
Absolutely.
And by the way, and so and this is just another class that got like that chill time. You know, maybe you got to study. What if kids was like, and during this resource period, we was just actually we going to the market of the school, and I got to buy a trade, have a Black Market Friday, you know, buy this, sell, so they have an understanding of how business run. You know,
Right.
while they're in school
Absolutely.
studying math,
Yeah.
being able to have a quick application of it. And so again, that's the kind of innovation that I'm talking about. It's seems simple, but again, when it's time to make things happen, you know, we're faced with all these politics.
Right. Right.
You know, and I don't know.
Why do you think, and you guys are all in some form of education, including you, Ebony, why do y'all think that that black kids should be taught sort of different when they come into school? Because we learn different. We
Their
grab things
experience
different.
is
There's
different.
Right there.
Right.
Right
And
there.
their
Experience.
teachers' experience is diametrically different.
Yeah.
Even if it's a black
Yes,
teacher.
I was
Because
just about
there are
to say
some
that.
black teachers who can be some of our children's worst enemies.
Yes, they
Sure.
can.
Because they don't appreciate who they are, and anything black, you know, it's
Right.
that internalized
Because we're too busy
racism.
trying to please
Yeah.
white people and other people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
I'm with
why I
you.
love hearing these young people understanding this
Yeah.
and talking.
Powerful.
And why are people
Yeah.
afraid of that conversation? Why do they think? Why do they think this conversation is so toxic? Toxic, and you spoke on it earlier today.
It's the conditioning and the reinforcement of our society.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Like
Like,
you
so
said,
white people
so
are.
Right.
peep game, like, you know, I had a moment last year when I just totally just cut cable off. And I was just it was just something I looked at every commercial. I was looking at the commercial, and I was like, huh, there weren't any black people in that whole commercial section.
You start looking.
And then I was just like, you know, and then I studied when I went to IU, majored in African American Studies. That's surface, you know. That's,
Sure.
it's
Sure.
cool, but at the same time, to say I'm going to college and to study this, that's where I met Angela Davis for the first time, and
Right.
Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee,
Right.
Mario Van Peebles, and I was just like, huh, but. Look, I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
I'm
you
sorry.
good.
You said you was in your 30s,
But
so
it's
I mean,
right.
you know, that's when it starts.
That's what
You
it's-
know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things that this racism training does, it helps us understand why, for instance, white people have wealth that they can give to their children. Like Donald Trump's daddy gave him $5 million or something like that. It's like a monopoly game.
It really is.
When you talk about equality, what's the difference between equality and equity? Okay, here's the monopoly game, and everybody starts off with the same amount of money. But there's one group that doesn't start till 3 hours after the other group has already been going. So by the time they come in, all the property's gone, even though they still got that same amount of money. See? So that's one of the things we try to show them, as well as showing them all of these laws and policies that were deliberately, like the GI Bill. That's just one little example.
Sure.
We were over there fighting just like they were, but when they came home, they could get housing, anything they
Absolutely.
wanted.
Absolutely.
And that's still going on. This is
Redlining.
intentional. It is intentional, and racism, it's systemic, and it can just transform itself to anything it needs. That's why when we do these workshops, we always have members of the community to come in, and we had IMPD, we had people from health, people from juvenile justice, because that racism is running through
Everywhere.
everything. And when you look at it, it's always us who's at the bottom. So we need people to start asking questions, because they think it's just businesses. It's normal that we're at the bottom.
And as you said, there's black
Black
people.
children are supposed to be
the
at the
same
bottom. Oh no, we come out of the womb as geniuses.
Right.
But the farther along we are in school.
Would you all agree
Done
that
that.
we're the most influential people on earth?
The reason being,
Yeah.
I would say
And
I
this is a two-part question.
Emphatically, yes.
This is kind of a
Would you-
two-part question.
I
Would
would
you all-
say,
Yes.
I would say people of color have contributed so much more in this world.
Okay.
You know, prior to the rise of what we call white racism, I mean white supremacy.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've contributed not just African people, but we're talking about Indian people, we're talking about
Right.
Asian people, we're talking
Sure.
about indigenous people. I mean, you
Absolutely.
look, you know, before Europeans ever picked up, you know, agriculture, we were already
Really?
we were having our hands in the ground, you know,
Moors.
making melon, you know
Right.
what I'm saying, in Africa,
Science
you know,
and
it's a
everything.
science and everything,
Everything.
building temples. So in that sense, I think we've contributed. Even today, we contribute so much. You know, America would not be. This is why I always, and I don't tell my students this. I tell an older group if I'm, you know,
Sure.
Look here. When the colonists got here off that ship to Plymouth, none of them knew how to grow anything.
That's right.
It was often said that Europe's trash was sent to the Americans
Yeah.
because of religious persecution
Yes,
that
they
was
were.
going on over there.
Yeah.
So when they got there, they had to ask the indigenous people, well, how do you grow this? So the indigenous taught them, well, you can take a fish and you can put seeds in it and you plant it like this and you plant it this deep, this can get like this. You know, even, you know, and some historians would argue, but I'm live on air and I debate anybody with this. Even the American Constitution.
Yeah.
There was an Iroquois Constitution.
That's right.
You know, the Iroquois Confederation. And you know, and if you read the Iroquois Confederation, it's almost line for line. And it was stated by Ben Franklin that he gave the indigenous people some credit for being civilized, more civilized. You know, so when we talk about the contributions that people of color that are non-white, we've made tremendous,
Right.
tremendous
Yes.
achievements and contribution. In terms of, you know, somebody brought up Thomas Edison. Look here, Thomas Edison wouldn't know nothing
Please.
about the light bulb without Lewis Latimer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Lewis Latimer was right at his
Yep.
side. And when people
Exactly.
forget, Thomas Edison, he went through a dark period. It's because of him that we got the electric chair. And that brought a horrific time to his life. But it was Lewis Latimer that didn't get the light. They didn't get the shine at that particular
And
time.
I've been hearing this
Yes,
more
man.
and more
It's
because
true.
we last year around Black History Time we put out a list of things that were made and
Yeah.
accomplished
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Black. It was a big list of things. And there was also
Gas masks,
we also
everything.
found out that a lot of those people
Traffic
didn't
light.
get credit till later.
No.
It wasn't
Yeah.
until this man decided to say, "Look, we need
They
to start
sold
making
it.
sure we write down who really created these things."
Yeah.
And if you go back and you look in time and you see when Thomas Edison supposedly created electricity, you see this guy's name too.
right to the side.
You
You know,
say,
that-
yeah.
"Wait a
The
minute,
light
who
bulb.
created
I
it?"
think it was often said that, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was with Thomas Edison for over 1,000 patents.
Right.
Which says something that he worked intimately. This
Right.
was somebody that knew. We talk about one guy we can't forget, George Washington Carver.
And
Oh,
You
he
know,
was a
who
man.
used to, a community guy who used to walk around with his cart looking for people in the community to teach how to grow with the next agricultural tips. This is a guy who walked around neighborhoods, talked to flowers. He was informed. This was somebody who wanted to take the knowledge that he had and
Give it
spread
away.
it, give it
Yeah.
away. That's our job today.
And
That's
he
right.
also they attribute Ford's success to George Washington. Well, they don't, of course.
They don't say it.
They don't say it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this-
Here's a question.
Oh, go ahead.
What have white people created? Like what?
Mischief.
Like I mean, when you think about it, like any type of original thought, like what have they used as far as their thinking to create something
Well,
of their own?
I think I was watching the History Channel. I think it was just talking about the first billionaires, and I thought it was interesting. Put a lot of things in context as it pertains to the railroad system,
Sure.
as it pertains to the coal system, and everything like that. And so, as Dr. Payne was talking about the whole monopoly concept, nothing really became really grew until everything became industrialized and
Right.
you was able to
Yeah.
do things in masses and
Industrial
you know, so
revolution, yeah.
right. And so when you talking about this really kind of that origin, but it still is just I'm able to manipulate the system because it works for me.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
You know, so with that, you know, you create that concept of wealth. And it really, again, that's wasn't created. We're just talking about in context of here. Really
Sure.
kind of
Right.
goes back until, you know, building gold, taxing the nation, taxing and all that. So again, it didn't create anything. This was able to dominate it and manipulate the lesser. So and then in between you have your inventions, this, that.
Right, right.
You know?
It's-
And I mean, listen,
yeah.
I'm not gonna be Mr. You know, super kind of say black white man is not created anything.
For sure.
Well, it's like
Right.
you know on the levels that of course things have been created, but we're talking about again. I put it like this: you talk about how black people have impacted the world. There's integrity in our pain.
Yes.
There's
Absolutely.
You know, there's
A lot of
substance
integrity.
in my soul.
Yes.
Right.
You know,
To-
and the
yeah.
fact that I'm here to this point, and so that you've not been able to destroy. And so,
Say something.
have you ever seen Avatar?
Yes.
Aang, the Last Airbender.
I was
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking.
Yeah.
So, the interesting about it, and I'll encourage anybody to watch the last episode when Aang can control all the elements. He's,
Yeah.
Right.
he's an
Water,
avatar.
air,
yeah.
They come every 100 years, and so but he had came across the path with a huge sea turtle, and the sea turtle said back then we used to bend with our souls. And so when I talk about the integrity of my pain, it's
Right.
like there's nothing integral about any decision, about any politic, about anything as it pertains to America,
Right.
the United States. There's nothing integral
Right,
to it.
right.
And the fact of what's going on right now, you've pretty much tapped out of whatever the integrity you might, that we might have thought
Right.
it had, that we can't even be blinded to anymore. A lot of people we've been researching for years. Like there's no logic to this because your hatred blocks out the integrity of truth,
Right.
and that's all we've. So you've been trying to bend that to us,
Right.
but
Right.
because the integrity of our pain is now bending it back on to you, and you're becoming weaker because it can't sustain it.
Right. It makes you think what's in people.
Look, that's an
And
unpowerful part
our
too.
our flaw as a people is that we can have a great idea
Right.
and won't act on it. But we could tell it to that man, and he could go turn it into $1 billion business.
Yeah.
Why don't we see ourselves like that? Why can't we take our great ideas and act upon them? Because
Fear.
to me, when he said that question, it's just like, well, if I seen a guy and I had the capital or I had the know-how to take what he's doing and turn it into something major, they champion that.
Fear.
More money, more
And they
power,
still
bro.
do it with the
That's
record
it.
industry,
Well,
with the sports and entertainment. That guy can jump high. Oh, he's an athlete. Let me get him in
and
here.
often going along with Pat is fear.
Right.
You know, it's fear of being ostracized. You going back, you know, we've always had this bourgeois in our black community that is always seen, that is always seen the individual who is not trying to attain white status or white favor. Let's just say white favor.
Right.
You know, we've always had the bourgeois in our community who have always tried to separate themselves from the haves and the have-nots.
Sure.
And I think it goes with fear that, you have black families with money who are just out of fear
Sure.
because of reprisal, white reprisal.
Yeah.
This is white reprisal. Often during the civil rights period, this was some of the contention between Ella Baker and Martin Luther King. Ella Baker was very candid in saying that she thought King was a spoiled, privileged individual. She often said this. Now, I don't think that took away from the message of what both they said, but I also think it explains even today why you see certain black people not just having ideology and then others moving forward with action. You still
Right.
have these you still have these dichotomies that exist today. And going back, to sports athlete, I've always advocated that, I think it's come to a point where if black athletes in particular, are being recruited in the neighborhood, I think it's the responsibility of the institutions that are recruiting that if you get that student, you give back to that community.
Absolutely.
For taking
That's
the
a good
talented
idea.
resource
Yes.
out of that
Out of the
community.
community.
For taking the talented resource, because often these young kids go out and
They
they
never
bust a
come
knee.
back. I mean, they come back, but
yeah, they come back, but they don't come back. They don't
Right.
come back with resolve. They don't come back with
Right.
anything to show for
a lot of
it.
them go and lose their money
A lot of them go and use their
and
money.
then return.
So I often advocate that institutions like that come back and give back to. They should be demanded that you give back to the community
Absolutely.
for the talent resources that you take it back. But going back,
That's a good idea.
the reason why I don't think you see a lot of us doing more in terms of what we should be doing today is because a lot of people thought when Obama became president,
Right.
a lot was going to happen.
Right.
But I was one of the people that I supported Obama, but I was one of the people that said even after his 8-year term, there will be white reprisal.
Oh,
For sure.
yeah, we
Because
got it.
historically that's how it's always happened.
Sure.
It's all King, we got it.
Right.
The civil rights movement, we got it. Reconstruction,
Right.
we got it.
We get
Right.
punished.
We getting punished. When Nat Turner
Yeah.
had to let his rebellion in 1831, they put his head on the pike, but it was white vigilante vengeance. They went around to terrify people to make sure that this was not going to happen. And even in the islands,
Right.
that's where Nat Turner heard it from because he heard about the Haitian Revolution 60,
Right.
60 plus years before. So
Absolutely.
he's like, I'm gonna start it here. White reprisal, and then if you look at Haiti today, white reprisal. One of the very first all black independent nations did not get anything received from the U.S., Britain, or anybody. No economic stability.
Yeah.
No infrastructure. White reprisal has always been at the forefront. Like, look here, you want more rights? This is what you got to do.
That was Toussaint
Right.
Louverture.
Tucson,
And now, the French are punishers. They
And
still
yeah.
punish.
the story of Toussaint Overture. This is the story of the bourgeois.
Yeah.
Because Toussaint, when he was asked to go to the French embassy in Cuba, when he was asked, he said, "Hey, we want you to go there. We want to make a peace." Bookman was like, "Hey man,
Yeah.
don't go, Book. Hey, bro, don't go. This is a trap."
was.
Toussaint was so enamored of being
Yes, he
accepted
was.
by the French.
Yes.
Wore his French regalia during and all that. When he got there,
They tried.
he waited for 2 hours. He didn't find his security guards. His security guards had already been taken. He waited there for 2 hours, and when they ended the 2 hours, all he was handcuffed, sent back on the ship, and he died in a prison in Europe.
Sure did.
This is the message that I tell our students today, particularly students of color. I tell them about, I tell them about the story of Rock Forehead, who was an indigenous chief in the Americas, and the story between Colonel Custer. And it's a very telling story that before Custer met his demise, Rock Forehead had said, "Hey man, this whole peace pipe, this is about tradition. This is about owning their culture." Custer was sitting down, and Rock Forehead told, "Hey man," and I'm paraphrasing, "if any harm comes to my people, the great mother spirit will get at you." And what happened? He lied within that circle. And that's the same outlook that when people come into our spaces, white people who want to tell us about race and everything, no, go back to Carmel, go back to Fishers, go back to Brownsburg and talk to your people in your community about it. We know about it because we live it. We live it. So it's about owning so it's about really reclaiming our identity, our dignity,
Right.
reclaiming our own being agents of our own liberty, being agents of our own, of our own agency, and then really and then stop being afraid.
Yeah.
Right.
The reality is that a lot of us are working for someone else that does not have our best interest in hand.
Right.
Yes.
But yet we're trying to make them happy.
Come on.
Right.
So the reality is that until we start saying, hey, you know what? I had a friend who quit teaching for 4 years so we can run an independent school.
Wow.
Because he was that now. Because of circumstances out of his control, he had to go back to work. But I looked at that inspired me to start a Saturday school. So this brother left 4 kids, married, and he did 4 years of without a job, trying to make sure that his kids, it wasn't about him, it was about his kids.
Right.
My kids ain't going into those schools because you're not gonna tell them nothing that I want them to know.
Right.
So he had to start it. So that's why I was telling Ms. Payne earlier, that's why I started a Saturday
took
school.
action.
And that's why I do Saturday school the second and fourth Saturday of every month at Kepler Institute. That's the organization I'm with. And I started it because I wanted particularly youth of color. I wanted them to have spaces where they can be themselves and we can talk about these issues. Some of these students go to tech. So you already know there's a bunch of issues and concerns that they have, and so on top of that, I think at the end of the day, it's all of our efforts should be geared towards the youth. Because look here, I'm 30 plus years old. I mean, the information I have now does nothing for me. I love it because I love it, but I have to pass it on.
Absolutely.
I have to pass it on.
Absolutely.
Because what you're doing is Saturday school. helps these children counteract what they go through
Yes.
every day. And I'm 77 years old and still
That's young.
having to do the work. You talked about something that the bourgeoisie, black people. That's why you hear black children saying, I don't want to be smart because they'll accuse me of being white. They tell me I'm talking white. And so then we got to get into their heads about that.
Right. Right.
Don't you hear that?
I hear it all the time.
It's and
Yeah.
then you have again, and it comes back to we have to be very cautious and like of good intentions.
Yeah.
True.
Yes.
And so and I tell people to face. I think that's the most polite way I can say it. I say you need these are good intentions, and essentially, again, when you have that kind of mindset going about it. When you don't understand where the kids are coming from, but you can develop a program and get millions of dollars on a grant, this, that, and the
Without
Sure.
any of their
with any food, true form of competency of working.
It's crazy because I
with
see
that child.
foundations that are supposed to represent communities get millions of dollars.
That's right.
And nothing,
But
nothing
no
happens in the
input
community.
from the
And that's,
community.
you know, it's like schooling today. You know, when, you know, school legislation is often written by non-educators, people who have never stepped foot in an actual.
right.
When you think about ISTEP
Yeah.
testing, you know, I read how they created the ISTEP test for certain states, and the reality is that a lot of these people are not educators, and if they are educators, none of them have ever stepped foot in an urban classroom
Right.
where the tests ultimately affect. It ultimately has the ultimate dire, tragic effect on our students of color.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, and it's quite sad that you know you don't get people in the community to say, hey, this is. I've always said that if we're going to create a test, then we need to create a test based off the issues and experiences that children deal with on a daily
Exactly.
basis.
Absolutely.
On a daily basis, not questions that are privileged.
Right.
That's not
You know?
what the test is for.
There you go.
It's for exactly
true.
what it's
Yeah.
doing. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's true.
test
That's
a
very true.
thing, you know.
And it seems
but
like
they're
there's-
able to slop.
That's how it
That's
is.
what it is.
It seems like again we don't have a concentrated focus. Like okay, obviously there's a fail safe here. You
Right.
know, like I said, where's okay this? And again, like I told you, said before, the logic has not been adding up, and then so essentially the lack of credibility in the system has to lead to our motivation to wanting to survive.
Right.
And again, you have to. If we're not going to survive outside the system, around the system, then you have to learn how to readapt
Sure.
within the system, and then
Right.
I mean that can be.
And
course, assimilation.
then once you
Yeah.
get there,
But-
act on it to teach
Right.
others.
Well, and again, let me make sure I create that, divide, because people have done that again out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but what do you begin to do when it's again out of to be encouraged? Be like, no, this and everything that you see around you is trying to kill you.
Right.
Everything,
Right.
you
Sure.
eat, everything.
yeah.
You have a
Absolutely.
little pre-contest, but let's be honest. It's just like I don't know if I'm low key paranoid or what.
No,
I
you're
said,
right.
but like everything you eat,
Yeah.
everything that you grow.
Yeah.
But when I say that, that can also
true.
tap into the conversation about the fact that there's marijuana business is now $1 billion industry.
That'll
Right.
get our
I said,
children.
but we still have people in serving time for selling large sums of
Yeah.
marijuana underneath the context. Again, the integrity don't match up.
Right.
The
Right.
logic doesn't
Right.
match up.
Right.
When you begin to give privileges to Caucasian people, white people, and then ask what's the problem is. No, man, we can't trust that.
Yeah. Someone looked at marijuana and was like, "They made how much off of that?
Right.
Right.
They doing what with it?"
And
So we make some money off of
like,
it.
so you talk about the knowledge of self because I know this might. Monique is on my mind,
Sure.
and she's been on my mind.
Sure,
With the
sure.
whole thing about boycotting.
Sure.
Netflix.
Sure,
Netflix,
let's
and
talk
I was
about
just like, no, y'all, we just can't throw it at like it's a mosquito repellent or something. I don't like. We're gonna boycott. We're gonna like NFL. We're gonna and that's cool, but it's again, it don't have a plan. It don't
Right.
have a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
People want to compare it
Thank you.
to the boycott,
Right.
but people forget.
Make your own.
Rosa Parks was a
I know,
sacrificial
yeah.
lamb for a reason.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
y'all
Create
couldn't
your
touch
own,
her.
man.
Right.
You know, y'all couldn't
Right.
so that's why she was. And there's a movie coming out that talks more about
Yeah, I
she wasn't
can't wait
just
for
a
it to come
random
out.
pick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Yeah,
when you
it
talk
was-
about boycott, again, you using the tone.
There was a
very
lot
loosely.
more to her than
Well,
people
well,
know.
well,
Oh,
it
Rosa
was-
Parks.
Oh yeah, I mean, well,
It was
I believe,
all,
I think her
it was
dad was in the struggle. I mean, like, you know,
Yeah.
Rosa, she came out of the struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, I mean,
Right.
she was bred in it.
Yeah,
Right.
it
You know,
wasn't
so
random.
yeah,
at
you
all.
can't- we just
random.
can't
I
throw
mean, you're
it
not
down
going
those
to get
Yeah.
anyone's attention unless you start hitting their pockets.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
truth.
But you
Yeah.
can't tell, you know, like I said, even with the boycott thing, there's many ways pros and cons. You don't go on. You went on every radio,
Saying
we
boycott.
boycott when it happened back then. Wasn't telling the world.
Mm-hmm.
You told the people
did
who
it.
mattered.
Right.
And it's like
Right.
it was like I said, there was vigilance
Right.
to it. There was,
It was chess
we
playing.
can't tell you. Look,
Chess
oh. You trying to play hide and go seek, but you hiding at the base.
Mm-hmm.
Move.
Would you say, and this is particularly for you,
Yeah.
would you say that if you was to follow one of the other, would it be Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, and why?
Oh wow,
That's a
it's
good
interesting
question.
because
hold on.
shout out to my
Hold on for a second.
my
That's
good
a
friend
good
Spanko
question.
Joanza.
Hold on for a second, man. Before you even answer that, but which Martin though? Was it the Martin?
The
Yeah,
Martin that
because Martin
America,
changed- yeah,
that America gave us, or the real Martin?
Or the Boondocks one.
right.
I've had this conversation. It's funny because I was actually thinking about this yesterday. So for the last couple of years, I just take it upon myself, and on February 21st, I just make it a whole day, and I just listen to Malcolm videos, and it's just like, and I just like kind of spend time with his voice, and then I try to do them context for context,
Yes.
and like up
Sure.
until you know.
I would choose either one.
Well, no, it's not a choice, but it's just
Yeah.
like it's almost like if you was able to have that conversation. It's like,
Sure.
okay, well, I want to have a conversation with Malcolm doing his transformation,
Sure.
because it's like this man actually went to the prison and came out reformed, actually saying that this is. But
Right.
we know the story.
Sure.
But I always think about that 10 years coming out and learning and finding himself, discovering himself in the process of that, and actually, so I don't talk about anybody's religion, but for me, it just felt like what he did was so internal, so holistic.
Discipline.
When you talk about removing certain things from your body,
It's discipline, man.
and so we talk about Martin Luther King. I wouldn't want to be with Martin Luther King because he smoked cigarettes, and I don't really like to hang around with people who smoke
Yeah,
cigarettes.
there you go. There you go.
I wouldn't.
But he smoked cigarettes,
I'm
and I
with you on
say
that
that
one.
because even though you're fighting for civil rights, I say even something as small as that cigarette is serving this supremacy.
Sure.
And so from Malcolm, when Malcolm was talking about, I said, no, I got to remove everything
Right.
that's trying to contaminate
Right.
me, because the revolution not only starts on the outside, but it has to begin within.
Inside
Right.
first, yeah.
Right.
You know, so when we say the
Come on
kingdom
with
of
that.
God is within, then why are you going to
Right.
invite God into your temple in a haze of smoke?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
I'm
That's
with
a
you.
poem.
you know what it is.
Yeah.
Let me write that down in my other phone.
I got it.
Put that on a shirt.
Oh yeah.
That's so
I wanted to ask about going back to, you said a concentrated focus. What'd you say, Eric? You said a concentrated focus on something. As far as us, we don't have a concentrated focus. And then
Trying to be too loud.
wise, you said you sound
You don't
loud.
want to. No, I was saying
Oh.
he was trying to say that people were being too loud about it instead of just acting on it.
Okay,
Right.
I believe.
okay. So I interpreted the concentrated focus with identity, and I wanted to ask: do you feel like we don't have a concentrated focus on something? We have spread ourselves so thin, being involved in other people's affairs, that we are literally spreading ourselves to where we are losing who we are, our purpose. Because we're empowering so many other groups of people that we're
Groups of people
saturating our
being-
own. Well, the LGBTQ community, the Latino community. Although there's nothing wrong with these communities, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying in regards to intersectionality, all those things have caused us all these
Yeah.
movements, all these other things that have kind of,
Like you're
in
taking
my
something,
opinion,
you're giving
you're
something back.
right. You're
It
taking something and not
distracts
giving, and
us.
we're literally spreading ourselves thin to where we are losing ourselves in the process. That's what I am observing among our people. So we're empowering all these different groups
Yeah.
and disempowering ourselves at the same time. That's what it feels like to
It
me.
feels like it, and then, but from the, I guess, from the standpoint of the other groups who are just trying to survive in America, and so it's just like the system is working for you because, again, it's we know for a fact. And you read those old documents. I was even just reading something about some old education documents. The startup of education. It's never been for us.
Never been.
Never.
So,
Right.
Never.
And
So,
never will
so when
be
you say
for
I
us.
want to achieve, you'll hear immigrants. You'll
Yeah.
hear this, that, and the other. I want to live my American dream, and I got a bunch of my family, this, that, who I know, who have who've not had to have sex with their mothers, who I know who have not had to use their children as crocodile bait, who I know who have not had, like everybody's had, I want to take away from everybody's take away from everybody's struggles.
Sure.
Because we've all had to suffer.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's,
Right.
it's either me or you, and it's like, so it's again, it comes back to how does it seem like we end up getting manipulated.
And ways,
Right.
and
The most.
there's a way.
you got,
Hey.
Yeah, there's a way to serve
it's-
everybody and still help your own. A lot of communities do that. Latins, the Jewish, they all serve their own, but
Right.
help, but open that to everybody.
Right.
So they have a Jewish community center, but everybody's welcome.
And make sure
But we're
that
gonna make sure we're
foundation
building
is
this
want
strong.
everybody's
foundation
money.
of the Jewish.
right.
We got to get to the point where it is self first.
Yes.
Where it is us first. Now I'm telling you, we got to. The word is focus on us first, because we're the ones that.
The bottom line.
Yeah.
And explain why that's. Explain, because some people say
Because
that's
if
cocky.
you don't
Explain
know
why that's not
yourself,
cocky.
if
Right.
you don't take care of yourself,
Right.
how are you going to be helping anybody
I
else?
agree.
Charity
Exactly.
starts
I
at home.
agree.
Yeah.
And-
Charity
and-
starts at
I agree.
home.
You have to study our past, study our history, and you will see we have got to. Because a lot of us don't even know our history or
Right.
how and why we got to where we are.
Right.
They just don't know what's happening to us.
I've learned, I'm in my 30s, and I've learned more about African American history than I have in my whole life in my 30s. So
Yeah.
20 years went past, 20 something years, almost 30 years went past with me being blinded to who I was.
And that is intentional
It is.
for it to be
And-
like that. That's why we have to protect places like the center for and I mean protect. We need to protect the museum over
Protect
at
it like they do
Christmas
the Vatican.
Adams. They
Yeah, no,
try
they
to-
know. Seriously. it's
yeah,
true.
really, you got to protect those institutions
Mm-hmm.
because they're white institutions. Remember. So that's why we are inside a white institution.
So let me
That's
ask
why
you.
we've got to protect
I wanted to
it.
see what Wise's thoughts were
Well,
on that.
I would say this. I agree. I do think we need to partner and ally.
Partner.
But I also,
With
but
the right
agreeing
people.
with Eric and Miss Payne, but we need to keep our eyes on the prize.
Yeah.
What's really at
Okay.
stake here? I go back if I know you didn't ask me the question, but if the question was posed to me, who was my
Sure.
I'm going with again Ella Baker, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Her ability to work across many different platforms with socialists, communists, black radicals,
Sure.
black bourgeois, but she always kept it like, look here, regardless if they over there finally, regardless if the where scares down for him, look where we're still at. Even if you're a black and communist, you're still black. And you're a communist. You're not a white communist, you're a black communist.
Right.
She always kept her eyes on the prize, so she was always, like Eric said, she was always in the underground. Doing work silently. There wasn't no big fanfare for her.
With
She
no
didn't,
Facebook
with no Facebook. Matter of fact,
Get the
you know,
credit.
she would often. Now, I want people to understand. The readers listen to this. This was a frail woman coming from North Carolina, who was going to places like Mississippi. This was. I mean, you talking about one of the worst places in the South at this time. She was going to places like that by herself, on trains by herself. You know, so the certain type of courage, bravery that she had to always keep her eye black people. Yeah, you know what? You could come on, you're white, you could come on the SNCC. Hey, these young white kids can come. But understand this. This is led and this is started by us. She always kept that so in that thing, we can work with you. I don't care. Yeah, we can all build, matter of fact, we can build a coalition. Call it whatever you want to like, but they understand this. It's gonna work this way though. I don't care what you name it, it's gonna work like this.
That's what elite cultures do anyway.
Yeah,
We gotta start thinking like that.
we gotta start not just thinking, practicing that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
Right.
At home, you know, somebody was telling me that, how do we get, somebody was telling me about black and white dating and all that. Well, how do we get black men from type? Wait a minute. I said this. Start telling your sons and your daughters you're black and you're beautiful.
Yeah,
That's how.
absolutely.
Start telling them. Because the whole argument of trying to go out there and debate people about why they date, look, was you trying to date them in the first place? And then how is it impacting you right now? What you should be doing is instilling in our students and our children, hey, you're beautiful. Don't let everybody tell you anything different, and you're smart, you're educated. And I'm gonna make sure that I do my part to get you where you need to go. Creating those support systems for our youth, and on top of that, keeping our eyes on the prize. You know, I'm a black male teacher. Eric's a black male teacher. It's very rare. I mean, you don't see a lot of this.
Not at all.
You don't see a lot of this, but I always keep my eyes on when I talk to white teachers. Hey, how you doing? It's good. Hey, but did you see that?
Right.
I'm always you have to be the voice in the room when it speaks
absolutely.
up.
Yeah.
And you got and when that opportunity comes, you don't got to be exhaustive.
Right.
You know, intellectually masturbate. You
Right.
can just say, hey, what did you say? You know, I had a teacher a couple years ago. We were talking about hats being on in the room, and I told him, I don't have a problem with my students wearing a hat. I mean,
Right.
if they're engaged, they're learning, and if that makes them comfortable, fine.
Right.
Well, Wise, I gotta teach them about the real world, and I had to stop him. Like, hold on, you a white man, and you live in a totally different real world from these young black boys.
Right.
That's the moment where you gotta stop. You gotta check that.
Right.
Pause. Let's get this.
Absolutely.
Let's get
Sometimes
this.
that
there.
racism goes ahead of you without you even knowing it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And you got, and sometimes it's unintentional,
Yeah.
but you got to call it out.
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause it's like,
And that's how you start to dictate and create those narratives of action where people say, hey, he spoke out. And think about it is, we got to have courageous people. Seriously, you just got to have more courageous people who are willing to go out there and say what it really is.
Right.
When you said eyes on the prize, it took me back to the film and everything like that. And this is, I think, even when we talk about that with our relationships and our professions, everybody's not going to be a doctor and a lawyer.
Thank you.
And so, and it seemed like the 90s, it was like, and that was the pride that was being done, like, you girl, I mean, I get it. You can be a doctor, you lawyer, and that was a tool.
Right,
And
sure,
everything like that.
sure.
I could be a doctor. I ain't thought about it, and I could have had that path. But it was just like, okay, like I said before, my son is amazed at two particular professions: garbage man and fixer man. And so he said to me, he said, "Daddy, I want to be like Mr. Such and such, because he can fix things." And I was just like, and he went and it's funny because he's watched my dad fixing things, and he just sit back intently watching how they fix things. Like so, it's okay to have a bunch of doctors and lawyers and MBAs and masters,
Absolutely.
but this and that and the other. It's like cool, serve your role.
Right. Right.
But can you build a house?
Right.
I'm not talking about can you get it built. Can we have these basic skills? Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you start a farm? I'm talking about. I mean, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, this, that, and the other, and I'm not. But
Sure.
we need to eat.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And we need to have, like I said, eyes on the prize. Like
Right.
the prize is whatever natural resource that we can get our hands on,
That's
so we
why
can
it's-
build on that to manufacture.
Yeah.
And getting back into that, which was again,
Going back to what you said, like
institutionally taken out.
putting more value into jobs like a trash man. Electrical. I mean, honestly, who knows how to run a grid?
Right.
Who knows how to clean water?
Right.
Sanitation. I mean, these are not jobs that you should
Yeah.
look down on. I mean, they keep you alive.
Absolutely.
They keep you healthy.
But so you talk about, so with that being said, then it comes back to how we treat each other when
Thank
we talk
you.
about relationships.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, men, women, oh girl, I mean, this is again, the 90s really jacked some things up. 80s,
Sure.
where we was really identifying people by their profession, this, that, and that. Oh, I drive an Lexus, I drive a,
Sure,
I
sure.
drive this, all this status and this, that, and the other. I'm like,
Women didn't want no scrubs or
right,
no guys
I don't
driving,
want no scrubs. I'm like,
driving in the passenger side.
like I said, last year, like I said, I did about 7 different hustles, man. I was Uber driving. Did you know that you actually looking at an umpire Like I'm an umpire that was trained by my grandfather. My grandfather actually played
Wow.
with the Clowns a little bit. You know what
Awesome.
I'm saying?
Wow.
So I'm like, when I get out there and I say I can umpire a game, I'm honored by that.
That's
because
awesome.
why? You're talking to somebody who says,
Sure.
man, Eric, who's your favorite character of the
Mm-hmm.
Negro Leagues? I say Rube Foster. And they was like, well, what about Josh Gibson? What about Jackie Robinson?
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Robinson never started no league.
Such your page.
Right.
Rube Foster never, Jackie Foster never owned a team. Rube Foster did.
Right.
Rube Foster had, you know, when I think about that, I talk about the Negro Leagues.
Sure.
And ultimately, what I'm coming back to,
Sure.
so we talk about, again, eyes on the prize. There is nothing stopping us, as many as athletic as we want to be. And then, and again, we talk about, I hear about, you know, a lot of the women's revolution. It's like, look, why can't we start our own little baseball league? You know, why can't, you know, like I'm talking about baseball. I'm talking about, hey, you know, how can, because again, everybody's talking about boycotting NFL, this and
One of the
that.
most
I said, well, what
paid
we doing on
sports in the
Sundays?
world.
I've
What
been
can we
saying
do on
that.
Sundays together? You know, that where can we, what kind of game? I mean, you talking about, I grew up when they were throwing horseshoes, right? Now somebody done got paid millions because now they got cornhole. I think that's a piece of wood with a hole in it.
Yeah, man. What
And
about
somebody done said, hey, we just
Real
gonna
talk.
talk.
somebody?
And somebody getting
Listen,
paid off of that. Now you
man,
telling me
somebody need to
that.
start a curveball league. That'd be dope.
Right, I mean,
Oh,
but
man.
it's
I was
but I
the
think
champ.
that time
Let me tell you.
is
Curveball
now
is cold.
to really get, like I said, innovative and get anxious and just kind of really prepare for a shift. And
Yeah.
because I say that not because started this to have fun, I'm started because it will begin again, like I said, it will
Absolutely.
begin to shift and it will begin to disrupt the economy.
Do you
Right.
think
Yeah,
we're
you know,
there,
in certain
though? Cause do you think we're there? Cause like
We're
you know what
there.
Ray was
That's
saying
what
as
we're
far as we're
used to.
We're
sleeping.
there.
I don't know. I kind of feel like we
I think
are.
we've always
we
been
are,
there.
We
Yeah,
always,
well,
if there's a problem,
right.
there's purpose to that problem.
Yeah,
It can
yeah.
be solved. But
When
like I
that
said,
fear-
we get that fear out the way.
Well, thank you, man. When,
And-
when that fear fades out, man, then you see it.
And on top of that, but going back to Garvey, I mean, you often think about some of our own demises have been by our own people. Garvey with his
Absolutely.
business, the Black Panthers, you know, I mean, people often forget it was somebody within the Black Panthers that got,
Right.
you know, Fred
Right.
Hampton shot, not just the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Even,
Detail.
you know, when King died, look how many people came out to start to rat on King about his infidelities, as if what he was. So when you talk, and then even Malcolm X, his own people that he was in the nation with.
Killed it.
You know,
Yeah.
killed
Allegedly.
you know, allegedly,
Allegedly.
you know,
Allegedly.
so you know, so on top of that, when we think about some of our greatest achievements, it's been by our own hands that the demise. That's why I go back that I don't want everybody in my revolution that just
So-
because they look like it.
So let me ask y'all this then. Just being self-sufficient as a people, right? Do y'all think that integration helped us more, or did it hurt us more?
Yeah, this is what I'm gonna say. This is what I'm gonna
I
say,
mean, just
man.
based on everything that we
This-
covered.
I would say this.
Soul, baby.
I would say this. Integration benefited those who allowed the integration to happen. Often what people don't realize is that integration took a lot of our black teachers, black principals,
Sure
black
did.
store owners, created a situation where they no longer had jobs.
Yeah.
Integration also created an atmosphere, a toxic atmosphere, where even more white reprisal was put on, was against us now. So depending on who now, am I saying that today in the 21st century that kids don't need to know a diverse no, kids, matter of fact, I would advocate the kids know Spanish. I would advocate the kids know different languages. But I would also say, oftentimes when we're trying to integrate our children into these schools, we integrate them into a toxic environment.
Yes.
Who's in the school to
right.
who's in the schools on their behalf to make sure that their well-being is taken care of? You know,
Absolutely.
so when we talk about integration, you know, who are we? First of all, who is doing all of the integration? It's us. We're going into they're not coming into our neighborhood.
And that's why. Well, that's part of the reason why I wanted to ask that question, because my grandmother is 82 years old, and she grew up literally with black and white water fountain, and she said that when they were segregated, it was better in so many ways because mentally
That was.
there was more unity. We owned businesses. We educated each other, but we wanted to be conformed and included into a society. You know, to feel like, okay, they're here. Let's get up there with them, and we have never been up there with them.
You know, man, look here, man. Capitalism will make you bloodthirsty, hungry.
Yeah.
That capitalism, all it is just exploitation. It's about, hey, whatever you can do for me, I'll pay you what I think you should get paid for. you get it done, and when I'm done with you, I'm just
Right.
done with you.
Expendable.
That's just, you know, and going back to what Eric was saying, if you going back to that question, what did they create? That's what they created. A monopoly based off capitalism in the terms that we are going to create an industry, a market where only few can benefit from.
Yeah.
So when people like Noam Chomsky, a white man, one of the great white intellectuals that I always use to back validate,
Yeah.
when he says that this is more of an oligarchy, you know, we don't live in a democracy, be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you vote and only one particular group, one particular party, you know, gets the advantage, what does the rest of the group do? We have to fend for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to negotiate and make deals to make sure legislate. We don't have lobbyists at the State House all day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a democracy. That is a privilege that powerful white men, and yes, I'm going to say a white men.
Mm-hmm.
So because when we go back, the structure was created intentionally for that. So when we talk about why we're not there and integration, it's all tied to the fact that people want to be a part of that capitalistic structure.
Right.
They want to be a part of the 1%. You know, they want to be able to be able to own a Fortune 500 company
Sure.
and live well off and have a home in the rural area, a white picket fence, have their kids
Sure.
have a backyard, have the nice car.
Caramel.
You know, they want all of that.
The American dream.
They want the and the thing about the American dream is that you like Eric said, you see it on TV. Man, it looks nice. If I can have some tie to get the stain out of my clothes,
Reinforcing
man,
the
that,
psychology,
that-
you know,
and there you go.
over your psychology.
and so many of us believe in the hype that if we keep working, we pull our bootstraps up. Oh man, but that's a lie. How many of us have pulled our bootstraps up and look where it's left us? And look where we still are.
Right.
So people believe. So really, people believe in the ideology that is proposed by Trump and his constituents alike, and people before Trump. You know, this was a system that was systematically created to only benefit you. So that's, you know, historically, that's how the middle class got started.
Sure.
You know, they had to offset. They had to offset between the poor and the rich. There was no middle ground. So at the time, prior to the American Revolution, they're like, "Yo, man, we gotta get these farmers what they want. You know, these farmers gotta be a middle class. How about if we tell them, you know, how about if we subsidize their farming?
How
Bam.
about that stuff?
And that's what
Government
happened.
checks.
And then out of that, you get versions of what we got today, middle class. But the reality is, I don't believe in the middle class.
Sure.
You either you have it or you don't.
Right.
You know, you either Warren Buffett or you not. You know, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So I mean, so in that sense, we really cling to the idea of the middle class and this idea of climbing for the sake of just climbing. That's all for the sake of just
Yeah.
climbing.
Right.
And Miss Pat, so what do you think? I mean, do you think that integration has helped us more or has hurt us more?
I remember when IPS did this integration thing, and I was all out there. This is it. This is what we need, please. I started seeing how our children and parents were treated when they went out to Perry Township and all those other townships. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It was like strangers. In fact, they treated them like aliens. And when they took black teachers and placed them in white schools, you know, moved us all over the place so we could be teachers, they selected the black teachers that they wanted to go to certain areas and serve the white students. See? So I also remember when we had all black schools and all black teachers, and we were taught, and the teachers knew the parents, and they all went to the same church. They shopped the same place. You better not do anything wrong. You better not embarrass the neighborhood.
Embarrass the neighborhood.
That's right. That's right.
Embarrass the whole neighborhood.
That's when
Wow.
we were learning. That's when we were really looking out for each other. And then I started thinking about when they were doing something we couldn't do, like the 500-mile race. We started our own thing, the Black Racing League. And drivers were building their own cars. They were out to the fairgrounds doing this. See, I long for the good old days.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
and you know, it seems as though, and you know, I didn't live back then, but just, you know, listening to you and, you know, my grandparents, you know, one thing that my grandmother says now is that we have become more dependent instead of being more independent. So
Yeah.
we depend on jobs, everything.
Yeah.
That's
for-
a-
Very,
I
very
I believe that in this country, poverty and riddling has become synonymous. If you come to our
yes.
school and you can't keep up, or
Yeah,
pay
give
attention, that
you a
means something
pill.
wrong with you.
Right.
I think that there should be a plan for kids that come from poverty. One, a life skills plan.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because a lot of these kids, and we talk about this on our show when we have education topics, where a lot of kids are coming in and they're being parents at home and then coming to school with
Very much so.
life problems, like grown
Yeah,
people
grown
problems.
problems.
They got to worry
Right.
about feeding their siblings when they
Paying
get out.
bills.
They got to worry about helping pay the
Yeah.
bills. They worried about stuff that they should never have to worry
In
about.
middle school.
And then you wanted to tell them how to learn, how to math, history, science. They thinking about, man, I don't even know what I'm gonna eat
That's
tonight.
right.
I can't think.
That's
My
right.
head hurt. You know what I'm saying? When you hungry, your head hurt. You ain't got time. You can't concentrate. So you have kids that come in, and a lot of times even the school lunches ain't enough. So that's a two-part thing. You want to educate them, but understand that there needs to be a life skills curriculum somewhere for kids who are dealing with grown people issues.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, though, Ray, the life skills curriculum is there, but oftentimes the teachers don't know how to build relationships. If you cannot build a relationship with a
That's
student,
right.
you won't effectively teach
Right.
them. I'm sorry.
True.
Because students come in, sometimes you won't take the role of a teacher that day. Sometimes you may be a father, a mother, a counselor, someone that is a sounding
nurse.
board, a nurse, because that's what they need at that time. I've always said you have to meet students where they're at in their development.
Yeah.
So if I got a student coming in, his pants sagging, I'm not gonna tell him to pull him up, but I'm gonna tell him, hey man, show some respect around here.
Yeah.
That's all. Show some
Absolutely.
respect. What's your name? He got a street name. I call him by a street name. But hey, but what you gonna do? We gonna learn. We gonna do some learning though. Matter of fact, we gonna take your experiences. We gonna learn about your experiences. You have to meet
Right.
the student
Now you- absolutely.
where they at.
Exactly.
And it's about
Absolutely.
and it's important that we build relationships in
Right.
order to get all of that
Because
information.
they'll
in it.
respect you more when
Thank
you come
you.
down to their level.
Yeah.
Thank you. Once they see that, hey, I can trust her.
number
I can
one.
trust him.
And I can listen to them.
I can listen to him.
Yeah.
And then guess what?
Yeah.
And sometimes in what you telling them, the education may not be what get them, but just the word of encouragement may
Right.
get them.
Absolutely.
And then teacher of the year moments. When I have students come back to me and say, "Hey man, Wise man, hey, I just thankful you were there." I don't need a state of the ward.
Oh yeah.
I was
Mr.
telling my
Jones.
mother about him.
Mr. Jones hated stupid kids. He the stupidest kid in the classroom about it. Mr. Jones hated stupid kids, and he probably still hates stupid kids today.
And if you know what, but it's teachers like that hold you to such a high standard
right.
that you look
Not
back at, hey man,
play.
because they respect,
Right,
they saw
absolutely.
something in me that no one else saw,
Right.
and the fact that he took the time to tell you that,
Right.
he could have just
Absolutely.
walked past you and said, hey, you
I literally
Absolutely.
just tagged my second grade teacher in this post, like, on there. I was like, I want you to see this, you know.
That's why you still remember him.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Because it was like I
Eventually,
ran my
yeah.
second grade classroom. I did not play.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Freedom with Responsibility.
I like that.
Had
Like
a
that,
big
yeah.
purple carpet in the room.
Yeah.
We learned math by dice,
Oh wow.
add,
Wow.
subtract. You know,
Wow.
Give me your money.
we do all that. Had savings accounts. You
Absolutely.
know, and took them, trying to teach them how to make selections,
Sure.
look up shopping. It was, I still miss those days. They remember me too. I know they do because
Yep.
they know how much love and respect,
Absolutely.
and they just by the way my classroom looked,
That
they
says a lot
knew
too.
that I loved it. Yeah, what's on the walls?
Mm-hmm.
You can. It says so much, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So much.
Absolutely.
If you're
That's,
just tuning in to the great area, go ahead and tag a friend.
absolutely, guys.
Many people on here, we're having some good dialogue about meeting children where they're at, meeting
Yes.
other people.
Absolutely. There's two
Y'all
things.
make me feel good now. I feel bad about being Mr. Jones sometimes.
Hey,
I go to bed at night and be
That's
like,
probably the
dang,
only-
I think I was a little too harsh today.
nah, be as hard as you need to do. 'Cause
Well,
especially for black kids, they need that hard love.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I knew Mr.
Yes,
Jones
sir.
was looking out for our best interest, but at the time, I'm like, damn, he calling everybody stupid. What's wrong with this teacher?
but I would tell you this: when you talk about that hard love, and we talk about integration. So it's just like, okay, we could talk about which one we prefer to
Sure.
have, but when it comes to, again, this is just how, even when, cultural competency might come up as seem as cliche, well, let me bring it back to you. It's like, the lack of it has caused a major problem.
Yes, it has.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we're talking about the prison system,
Sure.
the whole pipeline. That has
Yeah.
a lot to do again
Absolutely.
with competency. Has a
That's
lot
what
to
we're
do
fighting
with
against, and it's still
and so when
resilient
people,
because of
you
that.
want to bring up talking about gentrification, like, but you don't want to talk about white flight. You don't want to talk about, like you said, the whole red line. You don't want to talk about
Sure.
these things that lead to it. And it's like people don't really understand. Folks have a floating context
Yeah.
of this
Yeah.
now that's growing, and so I mean, again, that's just.
Not a good friend.
Hardness towards it. Then on top of that, for them to kind of be like, hey, it's 3:00, it's snack time. Right now it would be snack time over here, and so again,
The placement of the
ingraining
juvenile
that
center.
right now. So having a good core understanding of how that system works,
Right.
better than how the education system works, or any other system for that matter. Still, this really kind of reconfirms how strong conditioning is and has been,
Sure.
and continues to operate. So when you're talking about meeting somebody where they're at,
Right.
that doesn't. It sounds easy. I said, but there's a lot that
Sure.
you're gonna have to relinquish of yourself.
Absolutely.
Because we
Yeah.
proved this last year at the
Yeah.
Bloom Project, King's Feast. We had 100 mentors, majority African American.
Sure.
We did
Shout
a
out to
poverty,
Bloom. Yeah.
line, pretty much kind of assess where you are in life.
Yeah.
And so when we were done, you had black men up front, you had black men in the back.
Sure.
You had them trying to hold on, but it was just kind of shows like, just because you black, I mean, you're gonna get. There's levels to this.
Right,
I was
right,
like, and
right.
again, and there's levels to racism. We learned that at our Undoing Racism training.
Sure. Yeah.
There's levels to racism.
Right.
So it's interesting now. The whole like, you just coming into that top surface,
Yeah.
and that's
Come on.
cool.
Come
and That's
on.
great
Right.
that you're there. It's like,
Right.
but don't get arrogant.
Right.
Thank you.
Don't get
So much
cocky.
more.
Thank you.
Right.
Don't get to the point where you know everything beyond your lamp can never be filled.
Come on.
So it's
Right.
like, because right now we got it to the point where we got folks who get a certain level of knowledge and you try to hold it over the next man.
Use the same
this, that, and the
words.
other. Regurgitate
Everybody
information.
using the same
You're doing research and
vocabulary,
sounds good. I get that.
problematic.
Yeah.
system.
It's gotten bad.
I'm
Like
tired
people.
of that word,
Right.
problematic.
And so I just
We're gonna bury
appreciate-
problematic.
I appreciate a lot of the people, really my generation, but we still have to give homage to those who
Yeah.
did it first, even with like IBE and,
Sure.
and things that was going on.
For
like
sure.
you said, the Black Racing League,
Yeah.
things that have been done stuff. But we're finally coming into this mindset. My generation, who born into hip hop, all the '90s, Def Comedy Jam,
Sure.
all this,
Yeah.
and finally getting to the point was like, okay, with the Black Owned Business Bazaar,
Sure.
that was amazing.
That was nice. That was
Open
amazing.
mic,
Yep.
amazing. Lace Farmers Market, amazing.
many beautiful
You know,
things.
so this thing is like these are kind of things where it at least starts and grows the foundation.
Absolutely.
For us, just kind of being able to see it on our level, and then we are growing it into something. But shout out to Oya right now.
Yeah.
Over it with the trap. The fact of the
For
matter
sure.
is that she
Oh yeah.
got the concept and said, I'm going to start my shop right
Absolutely.
here on 34th and Keystone.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
like,
it was
I
needed.
grew up
Very
on Keystone,
needed
so you
too.
know how many deaths I've
Yeah.
seen on Keystone alone, but she from the hood, so
Right.
she's like, hey, and
Right. It was
for the fact that
necessary
it
over
has
there.
lines all the way around
Yes,
the
it
building.
does.
On a cold day, I said, because this one person chose to innovate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now, but not only that, she's built her network to where, we really operate like a tribe, and it's just like,
Sure.
gotta protect that, gotta support
Yeah.
that. I
Absolutely.
want to be there to be able to, to know that, and to know that she's passionate also
Absolutely.
about the
Yeah.
community. She's not diabolical
Sure,
or anything
sure,
like that,
sure.
but and willing to incorporate other people into her success.
Yeah. I mean, watch out for the, the groundhog came up the other day, and there was a lot of people out there like, stay woke, don't get distracted. They're trying to
man,
use the
just like,
groundhog
come on, man,
to distract us from the real problems that's out
Right.
here. So
Yeah.
you got to watch some of them people.
Yeah.
It's almost like red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish.
Watch that damn groundhog.
Yeah. I don't want to switch gears. I'm sorry.
no,
We're
sure.
probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about, and
Yeah.
just to kind of close us out, we want to talk about the new movie that's coming out, the
Black
Black
Panther.
Panther movie.
I
coming
just
out
want y'all to take a
February
nice
6th.
look
Oh,
at
yeah.
my.
Oh, yeah.
See, y'all ain't see the hood.
gotta look at
The
Ray
hoodie got
jacket.
the
Oh, that's
He
I
said
look like I'm
Panther.
part of the Black Panther regime, somewhat. No, maybe.
I like it.
Okay. Okay. Y'all
I
see
mean,
that?
it's fitted
They,
too.
they don't have elastic QP in the
Hey,
regime.
no, that's a
They
small.
don't.
That's a size
That's
small.
I'm gonna be suffering over
They
there.
don't have elastic QP in Wakanda now.
Take it back. You're right. It's gonna be rough over there. It's gonna
I'm
be real rough
jealous
in
of you,
Wakanda.
like,
But I'm a firm believer that their sciences will do
Right, they're
something
gonna
for me.
create something for you.
Yeah.
I got you.
So now I can. Can we talk about Black Panther?
Yeah, let's talk about
okay.
Black
Now I can
Panther.
unleash my black now.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you said you had some kind. Was
It's
it
so
controversial?
in the magazine episode 321 of the Black Panther
Yeah,
series.
absolutely.
I literally have the encyclopedia at home, but I feel so bad. My father had a bunch of comic books, man, and like before the whole rave, and
Yeah.
they got lost in the shuffle, man. Like I
man.
don't want to go in Pop's business, but it's just like kind of one of those things where if this one led to that, then it's just like, all these magazines, and my father,
Absolutely.
man, he can read, and if you guys might know this, my father is black. but my father he went to Addicts and everything. I'm so impressed by like his knowledge of comic books.
Sure.
So the interesting thing about that is it comes back to education.
Yeah.
It was a time when people were reading comic books.
Yep.
It's really great to see it coming back because I like to see kids, encourage kids to read again. But which also brings up the topic, and you're starting to see more black superheroes being published again. We can, start
Sure.
to redirect and innovate and create.
Yeah,
things.
absolutely.
Yeah, let's do this because I know Miss Payne. Mama Payne over here. She didn't close up her folder. She got her billfold,
It's,
pocketbook.
It's time to go.
It's at tea.
It is
You
time
know
to
what I'm
go.
saying? I already know.
I'm turning over
You know
by
what I'm saying?
now.
So let's just give some thoughts on Marvel, just so we can just go along with promoting it and getting everybody to go out and check it out.
Absolutely.
And
It's been
so
written.
each one of you get some thoughts on it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And
Go ahead.
that'll help us to just lead us into our closeout, get Mama Payne home and ready
Sure.
for work in the morning.
Well, I can't wait to go to see Black Panther. I already got my tickets. But now I'm learning from you youngsters that there is really a history and a lot of
absolutely.
stuff that goes to.
Yeah.
All I know is it's gonna be beautiful black people throughout that entire movie. But you're telling me that there's a whole.
Oh yeah.
That it doesn't just start with what we're gonna see on the screen. There's more
Marvel
to
did a
it.
great job
Yeah,
of storytelling.
yeah. But what
Yeah.
did Ta-Nehisi Coates? What did he have anything to do with the Black
He wrote
Panther?
he wrote a comic for Black Panther about 2016, 2017. But Black Panther actually goes back. Stan Lee wrote the very first in
Sure.
1960. 1960.
Okay.
But that had nothing to do with Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther
Right.
that he ended up writing.
Right.
But I think I'm not sure Eric helped me out, but I don't know if this movie was inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates because he recently wrote his Black Panther comic,
For
maybe like
Marvel
3.
Comics or something.
I don't think he wrote it for Marvel. I don't know if I think he was. I don't know what
I
who was
gotta
publishing.
dig back into my
Okay.
nerves.
But I do know he did write his version of Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
And Ta-Nehisi Coates himself is just a great.
See, I didn't even know he wrote a
Deeper than the
comic.
movie.
He's a prolific writer, man.
Wow.
Prolific
He's
writer, man.
something.
That's awesome. He's the perfect person to play the Black Panther. I mean, if you think about it, like the first time that he played the Black Panther in what was that what was the other Marvel that came out with all of them in there? It was most recent. Was Civil War? Was he in Civil War with
I seen parts of
with
some.
Captain America and
a huge fan.
Iron Man was going against each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. He played in that. That was the first time I really got a glimpse. I'm like, man, this dude is cold.
Is he
Like
an
I'm
actor too?
No. I think we got
I'm talking about
Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's talking about the guy here.
Yeah, I'm talking about him.
no.
He played.
Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates is not an
Just a
actor.
writer.
His best
Right.
suited in the classroom. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about what's the guy's name that plays Black Panther?
What is his name?
Yeah, I don't know.
I
Because
thought
he's-
that
Because he has a
was.
movie on
Right,
Netflix
like
called
it's-
Call Me
That's
the
a
King.
daggone
Right. Everybody join in. What's everybody on the chat saying? But Thurgood Marshall. Hey, but the fact that he went from Thurgood Marshall to Black Panther, I was like, that don't even look like Thurgood Marshall. I mean, I ain't get nobody. You can't be everybody. Look, next thing he started Harriet Tubman. I was like, wait a minute, man.
But Black Panther is gonna be an awesome
Yeah.
movie. It's already hit the box office numbers like crazy.
Yeah.
Outside of not even being like, they got so many ticket sales just based on people going to see it.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So-
It's
Eli said Chadwick.
You got a brother, I don't know his name, but he's on, I've seen it on Facebook, who's really, you know, just kind of talking about the not being in support of the movie. That's not going to change anything. I mean, you're going to have that.
I saw
Yeah, you
that.
go. You always
you're
gonna.
have that.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I you know, I engage it because of like his point's valid to a certain
Sure.
degree.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
I
the
get
same
it.
like
I
when
mean, I was
Birth of a
like,
Nation came out.
yeah.
You know, there was a lot of people against that.
Well, I mean, which one are you referring
Don't
to?
get me started
The
on that.
new, the latest one, not the older
So-
one.
right.
The
So
older one was bad.
for this film,
The
for
Nick
me,
Parker version.
it is a direct contrast to Birth of a Nation. I mean, because
One
it's like you're
represented-
literally seeing a rebirth of it's like it's poking fun at
Sure.
it. No, this was your Birth of a Nation based on hatred.
What really happened.
and how you broke down my
Right.
whole people and how you gave birth to the Ku Klux Klan. Now,
Right.
you didn't give birth to it. You gave a fire to it,
Right.
and you gave reason for everybody to act. Great black
Crazy.
codes and I mean
Sure.
black codes out, but just to reinforce that institutionally.
Right.
And so now this movie just kind of really pokes fun at that and its society and says, no, this is what a Birth of a Nation looks like.
Right.
This is what your hatred got wrong about the people when it comes to actually
Right.
love it. So
Right.
Love
it's
it.
like and said and really we could say that the main resource is the metal. But the really the main resource in this movie, and I hope everybody pays
Sure.
attention, is the love for ourselves, the love for our culture,
Thank you.
the love for our own constitution, the love for our ability to work together. Even if we have discourse, we're going to handle it amongst ourselves.
Right.
You know, and we still want to lead. We still want to build. And again, I've not seen all the details of the movie. I'm excited. Working with a school, so we definitely want to try to get some kids to the movie.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, trust me, I want to be there, suit and tie, this, that, and the other. But if, and I'm hopeful, but if this movie can do for people, and the reverse effect of what Birth of a Nation did for people, and I'm hoping that it just sparks a whole new revolution of thought.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes people
Built
believe in
around
themselves.
courage, built
Yeah.
around love,
That's what
and
I'm
actually
hoping.
seeing not just a village, because people say it takes a village, and it's like you spoke to the village and you gave us context, but now this generation here, you know, it's like wait a minute. This is a village of people. There's black people in this film, and we're not calling each other. We don't have to cuss at each
Right,
other
right.
to refer to one another. But it's like understanding the rhythm in our speech, the pattern of our speech.
Yeah.
It's like I said, no, my dog. You said forget proper English.
Right.
I get on people to this
Right.
day when you tell me that's not proper English. I say ain't nothing proper about English.
No,
Again,
there's
it
not.
doesn't have any to
For
take.
sure.
It's a bastard line.
That's it. So at the same time,
And-
you want me to recognize proper English, but the proper English which you want me to understand don't have no proper governing.
Right. Absolutely.
So no thank you.
That's true.
I'll see you guys on the 17th.
That's true. Someone said that there was someone said that there was a
Alright.
spin to the movie where it also showed, because there's a black villain in there, but it also shows, I'm not gonna give nothing
Yeah, we
away,
will spin.
but it also gives a spin to that and shows you why it happens to be that way and how they resolve things. So that's gonna be great
So it's showing
to
us a
see.
way to
Can't
resolve
wait.
conflict
Yeah.
Absolutely.
in a proper way too.
And he got 3 enemies at one time.
Yeah.
You know, most of everybody that had like 1 enemy, 2 enemies. Nah, man, he got 3 different enemies at
Real
the
life.
same time. It
Real
was
life.
Like I said, because you always gotta have a big enemy. I said you got 3 enemies, and then you have Thanos looming.
Absolutely.
So you're gonna learn about Thanos.
Right, right.
But don't leave
And Infinity
Dr.
War.
Payne until the movie is over. Credits. You
And
gotta wait till the
everything.
credits. Because
Yeah,
that's
sure.
when you learn what's gonna happen.
Right. When
next.
all the
That's why I
words
said
when all the
Marvel
words
did a great
go,
job
there's
at
a
storytelling.
there's another piece after all the words scroll up.
Wow.
A lot of people leave the studio.
Okay.
You got
Yeah,
your
yeah.
ticket
Thank
There you
you.
go.
No,
Alright.
but I got my, I got my
you
gear.
move up, you gonna watch. Don't nobody get up. You gonna be like,
Right.
go on, sit back there.
With that being said, y'all, we
I
like to
got my subject.
This has been great.
Yes.
What a great subject, and we're going to continue to talk about Black history all year. You know, this is not
Good.
just
Please
for this
invite
month, but
me
it's
back.
important.
Oh yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Really wanna come
Absolutely.
back.
Absolutely, you will come
Absolutely.
back, and we will bring
We'll
you back.
set that up before you leave.
Yeah, all of you, because it's important that we continue to engage these conversations. And there's people who are watching who don't have access to Black folks that may be able to learn something,
Yes.
you know, for a change. So this has been a great conversation, and we hope
Proud
that.
of you.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
no, I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you
Appreciate
having us.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
means a
no
lot.
problem.
We appreciate
Means
y'all,
a
man, for
lot.
coming.
No
Yeah,
problem,
thanks
man.
a
This
lot.
is exactly what this platform is for, is to give us a way to communicate and talk about these things for more than 30 minutes or for more than a 20-second
Yeah.
commercial.
And it's not
You know,
governed, it's
yeah.
not censored.
And it's-
it's
and
not-
we own
Yeah,
this,
I
so-
like that.
Yeah, and we'll do this again. So
Very
thank
good.
y'all.
All right.
And to that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna close out with this
RBG.
this phenomenal song right here and let y'all listen to it. Well, who's it? Jamil Harley
and
and
Eli Waheed.
Eli Waheed
Indianapolis is on.
with
All right.
with
All
RGB.
right.
So y'all listen to this song.
Listening in.
Peace. We
Sound
out.
like an anthem, don't it?
We out.
It
Just
is.
make you want to stand up and salute, don't it?
It is. Peace out.
Man.
Great show. Well, I have to get home.
Appreciate y'all, man, for coming, man.
Absolutely.
And they're from Indianapolis?
Is he from here?
Ooh,
Jamil?
they're both from here.
Are they? Okay. I thought they lived in Atlanta.
No, it's all good.
Oh,
It's all good.
Closing remark.
Yeah, it's all good.
if you what you can do is like go in the comment section and just leave anything that flyers, anything that's going on, because there's a lot of people who watch this over the next couple of days and they'll be in there commenting like it's still live.
So I just go
Right.
online
Yeah.
and put in gray area.
Yeah, the Gray Area Media. And, yeah, it's on that card. Just look on that card. Yeah. Find the Facebook page. Yep.
And I
And,
don't
then-
do Facebook.
They got the
and you'll be able to be able to go back and watch this segment. So
Not this Thursday, but
yeah.
next Thursday.
Oh, that's the
I mean,
it comes
it's
out on
always
the
an honor.
16th. The 16th.
If y'all got any cards or anything that y'all want us
Yeah,
to,
this is
because
like
we have
the day
people come
before.
through here all the time from different, and you know we're always able to pass along information. So
Oh, the township.
You know, IMAX is
Black
doing
Literature and
something
Culture
too.
Center.
Black Panther release date is really the DSC.
Yeah, it's the 16th.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I can watch it the 15th. You know how they got it? So what I may do is
Even got a little quiz on here for you.
Yeah.
I'll be
Figure out the names.
Miss Payne, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming, man. We appreciate y'all, man, for coming.
Thanks for having us.
It's been beautiful.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Sure has.
Yeah, we're gonna take a
Yeah, we're gonna take a picture real quick.
Here, with my hair all messed up from that microphone. No, not from the microphone.
Just do